مرحبا بكم يا أصحابي، أهلا وسهلا إلى درس جديد. Hello everyone, welcome to a new lesson. النهاردة عايز أدرسكم أسماء الحيوانات. Today I want to teach you names of animals. For dog, كلب كلب كلب. The calf, then the lamb, then the bat. And calf has a fatha over it with the sukun above the lamb because there is no vowel coming after lamb. So we say kalb, kalb, kalb. To say cat, we say qitta. So qaf, kasra, ta with shadda and fatha and then the ta marbuta. Qitta, qitta. I'll write it again slowly for you. Qitta. And sometimes with this letter ta, since you have this going around, you can write it like this and just bring it around and bring the line down with each naqta. Qitta, qitta. That is cat. For rat or mouse, we have a way of saying this in modern standard Arabic or Fusha. In Fusha, this is fa'r. Fa'r. We don't need diacritics, but that's just to help you pronounce it. But this is fa'r. Fa'r. So there's a hamza. So it's like a pause. Instead of far, which this is the dialect, this is al-lahga. Al-lahga. Okay. The dialect. The dialect is al-lahga. So in Egypt, this is pronounced far. But in Fusha or modern standard Arabic, this is pronounced fa'r because of the hamza above the alif. So fa'r, and in dialect far, fa'r, far. This one is much easier to pronounce, which is why we use it in al-lahga al-masriya, the Egyptian dialect. A more specific word for rat in Fusha is jurth. Jurth. This word is not really used in dialect, so when we use far, you may want to specify with size. If you say far kibir, far kibir, far kibir, which means a large mouse or large rat. And if you want to emphasize that it is small, that it's not that big, you would call it far صغير. فار صغير. فار صغير. صغير. This is generally a very difficult word to pronounce for English speakers. Far صغير is because we don't put the vowel after صاد. Now you could say فار صغير. صغير. This is the normal way to say it, especially in فصحى. فار صغير, a small mouse, or a small, could even mean a rat. But in فصحى, this جرث is more specific to a rat. And in فصحى فأر, this is more specific to a mouse. But note that these two terms come from فصحى. Make the نقطة bigger. So both of these are from modern standard Arabic, what you see as often called in English MSA, modern standard Arabic for short. So these are MSA or فصحى terms. But these ones you can use in the dialect. Even if you use a word from فصحى, but you pronounce it perhaps in an Egyptian way, like instead of جرث, you might hear gurs, perhaps, or gurth, because the jim is always gim. So in Egyptian, we don't say lahja for dialect, we say lahga. So it's an example of how you can use fusha words while speaking the dialect, and just using the words but speaking with an Egyptian accent. Bird, طير. Bird is طير. 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 And I will write this again slowly. طير. So we have طاء, ياء, را. And we need the نقطات under ياء. طير. 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 And this is a bird. طير. And if you know verbs or have been exposed to verbs in Arabic, you know that this root طار, this is to fly, but it literally is for the past tense for he flew. So طار literally means he flew. Now in fusha, this usually will always have the final fatha at the end, so طار, to fly, but in dialect we shorten this and it remains طار. So طار, he flew. And if you notice, طار is a derivative for the word طير, bird, because the bird flies. طار. Now I will give you the word in فصحى versus لهجة, or the dialect. So this I will put MSA, so you know which is which. And wolf in standard Arabic is ذئب. 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 So we have ذال with the نقطة above the letter, then kasra, and then we have this, it's not an alif, but it's a alif maqsura, so it's like a ya isolated with the hamza, but in the middle of the word it appears like this. And then we have ba, so dhal, alif maqsura, ba, and we get dhi'b. Now in Egyptian, this sound, the, dhal, as in this, that, these, or those, this sound disappears, and it will either become a normal dal, or it will be pronounced as zain if it keeps the dot. In this case, in Egyptian, to make this word flow more and make it more easily pronounced, we take away the dot so it becomes dal, and it will only be pronounced d, like D as in David. And we will do a normal ya instead of the alif maqsura, and then we write be. So dhi'b simply becomes dib. So this is al-lahga, the dialect, specifically in Egypt, but probably in other Arab countries as well. Dhi'b in Fusha, and dib. So this one is, of course, easier to pronounce than this one. Dib. And dib means wolf. Dib. You do want to make sure you don't mix up this word with dib or dub. Sometimes the vowel changes depending on the dialect, but the one closest to Fusha is the one with the dhamma. So dal, dhamma, ba, and shadda. And this is dub, which is a bear. So it sounds similar to wolf, where the vowels are just, there's the ya added in the middle of the word dib, and there is no double be, so there's no shadda for dib. But for dub, this is bear. Now, in some dialects, this dhamma might get changed outside of Egypt, and it would become dib. Maybe in Lebanon, for example, where a lot of the dhamma in a word, this dhamma, would get converted to this kasra instead. So instead of saying dub, many people might say dib. But at least in Egypt, you'll probably hear dub, especially since this is the word used in Fusha, dub, which means bear. This is also a very simple word because even though the script is cursive, you don't have to connect any of these letters. They're in their isolate form. So you have dal and then be, and you just have to add your diacritics, your harakat, which are dhamma and shadda. So now you have dub, and I will write it for you one more time slowly. So dal, dhamma, be, shadda. And it doesn't really matter which you put first. If you write the word with the main base letters like this, and then you want to add your harakat after, it doesn't really matter as long as anyone can look at the word and we can tell what it is you're writing, and we can read it perfectly fine. So as long as your handwriting looks, something like this, and we can tell what it is. But you could write, as you're writing it, if you want to put harakat, you can do the first letter with the first harakat to go above it, for example. And then your be with shadda. So any which of those orders is fine. But as long as you know this is pronounced dub. The name for the fox, we have two ways of saying this. We have one way for saying it in Fusha, because it starts with this letter fa, and this, of course, has a different sound. Well, it can have two different sounds in dialect. It can either be pronounced as the letter ta, or it might be pronounced as the letter shin if it retains these three dots above. But this letter will never actually replace tha. It will just, the tha will be pronounced similar to the sin. In this case, however, with the word for fox, the tha will be pronounced like this letter. And sometimes in the dialect, you actually do remove this top dot, this nuqta, and it will be written the same as the ta. Where in Fusha, it would retain, of course, the pronunciation and the form or the appearance. In dialect, you might just convert it to the ta, since that is how it's pronounced. For example, I'm going to write this in MSA, or as we call it, Fusha. And this is Tha'lab. Tha'lab. So only four letters. Tha'lab. We have Tha, Ain, Lam, and Ba. But we have our diacritics, which is a Fatha, Sukun above the Ain, and then another Fatha above the Lam. And we get Tha'lab. Tha'lab. Tha'lab, which this means fox. Tha'lab. Now in اللهجة المصرية اللهجة المصرية, or the Egyptian dialect, this would be slightly different, barely any difference at all. If you say ثعلب while speaking dialect, it's not a sin. It's not haram to say ثعلب, even though it's not how it's naturally pronounced in اللهجة المصرية or Egyptian dialect. But this will be written slightly differently with the ta instead of the tha. Everything else stays the same. And this is ta'alab. Now, sometimes in dialect, they may retain the same exact spelling. They're just pronouncing this as this one is pronounced. So they'll write tha, but they will still say ta'alab. So there's a little bit of spontaneity when it comes to the dialect. There will be different spellings for words, but it doesn't really matter which one you choose. If you decide to choose the more phonetical one that suits the pronunciation you are speaking with, it's not something you need to worry about. But ta'alab is a fox. In Fusha, we pronounce it tha'lab, 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 ta'lab, tha'lab, ta'lab. Next, we have the squirrel, which we say sinjab. Sinjab. Now, obviously, you see this jim, which in Egyptian, this would be gim. So, with an Egyptian accent, this word essentially would be pronounced singab, singab, not sinjab. Singab. The word is the same, so there's no spelling differences at all. It's just in terms of the pronunciation can change depending on where someone is from. They might say sinjab, 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 or singab. The Arabic word for bat is khuffash. I will write it here for you. خفاش خفاش. خفاش. Again, you do not need to do the fatha if you don't want. Sometimes I do it out of habit, But because we have this aleph here, we already know there's this long vowel, so we don't, it's not required to put the fatha above the shadda. So we have kha with dhamma, kha. Then we have the fe, but with shadda, to indicate that we're stressing this as technically two consonants into one, but we put the shadda so that we don't have to write two separate, fe, and we don't have to write it like this. Khuffe. That makes it a little bit longer, so that is why we have shadda, and then we can put our alif and sheen. Khuffash. Khuffash. For a deer or a gazelle, we would say ghazal. Actually, the gazelle in English comes from Arabic ghazal. So ghain, zain, alif, lam, ghazal, ghazal, ghazal. Can be a little difficult with this letter because it sounds like you're بتغرغر بتحاول تغرغر. You are trying to gargle in your throat is what it sounds like, honestly. And so that's actually how we say to gargle is تغرغر. So we're using this same letter to kind of imitate the sound of gargling in your throat. So that's what makes it a little bit difficult. It's not quite like kh, which is a much more rough sound. It's a bit softer. So it is غزال, غزال, غزال. For fish, you will see two variations. You might say samak, samak, or samaka, samaka. So one difference is one is feminine and the other is a masculine noun. It doesn't matter which one you use. I've seen and heard both of them being used almost interchangeably. So I will show you how to write the first one slowly. Samak. Samak. سمك سمك. شكرا جدا على المشاهدة النهاردة. بشوفكم في الحلقة اللي جاية. مع السلامة والله يسلمكم.